Hi, my name's Abby, I'm a dietitian and I'm here to talk about interesting nutrition stuff. And today I wanted to start by talking about GLP1 medications, which is something I work with a lot and something I want to provide easy information and updates on and things like that. So I wanted to start with what GLP1s actually are and what they do in the body. So, what is GLP1? Well, it's a hormone that we produce naturally. It's produced in the wall of the intestine and also in the brain after we've eaten, and its job is to send messages to the other organs in the body, letting them know that food has arrived so they can do what they do accordingly. So, where is that signal received? Which organs get that message? Well, we have GLP1 receptors in different parts of the brain, in the stomach, in the intestine, in the pancreas, in the kidneys, in the heart, blood vessels, all over the nervous system, and even in our immune cells as well. So it has effects everywhere, all over the body. And you might be thinking, well, if we do produce GLP1 naturally, then why do we even need these meds? Why isn't that enough to stop us from overeating and things like that? Why are we in this position where so many people are needing these GLP1 medications? And the answer is that the GLP1 that we produce naturally is actually a very small and a very short-lived signal. It gets broken down by our body within seconds, and its actual purpose is not to stop us from being hungry. It's not to minimise our appetite completely, because that wouldn't have served us well throughout history where food has been really scarce. Actually, it's only designed to fine-tune our digestion rather than remove hunger. So yeah, it's like a tiny little text message rather than like a continuous signal, whereas the GLP1 medication doesn't get broken down by the body easily at all. In fact, it stays within the system for days, and that's why it's injected once per week. And while you can imagine that the natural GLP1 is just a tiny little text message, in comparison, the GLP1 medications act as like a megaphone entering the body, broadcasting this continuous signal, telling the body that it's full of food and not to eat. So the example of how it works on the receptors in the brain is that the nerve cells that usually signal fullness to the brain are continuously strongly activated, and the nerve cells that usually signal hunger are dialed right down. So that is the main mechanism of how that is the core mechanism of how it's working. You don't feel hungry, so you don't eat as much, and so you lose weight. Initially, this continuous and strong fullness signal is interpreted by the brain as something being wrong, as a potential toxin. Even though the GLP1 is not a toxic medication, it sometimes gets interpreted at first like that. So that's why often people might experience nausea and vomiting, because the body's trying to expel a potential toxin. Also, the stomach thinks it's full as well, so it doesn't want you to eat. It holds food in your stomach for longer, and actually the whole of the digestive system is slowed right down. And that can also lead to some of the symptoms that are commonly seen, like reflux, constipation, and nausea and things like that. So that is one reason why doctors recommend to start at a very low dose and gradually increase the dose over time so that your body can acclimatise to that. Another way that they work is they act on the dopamine reward centres of the brain. So that's the reason why we enjoy eating so much, is because we get dopamine, and that's that feeling of happiness and fulfillment after you've eaten. So it numbs that dopamine reward response, which makes food actually seem completely uninteresting to someone who's on these medications. And that's often what people refer to as the food noise going away. They might be able to look at snacks or food and think, I can take that or leave it because it's not interesting. So to someone who's like constantly battled with always feeling hungry and having cravings and things, that might sound really good, but actually it can get a little bit, depressing, because food is one of the things we enjoy and it's one of the pleasures of life, and that ends up being sometimes one of the reasons why people don't adhere to the medication long term, because that is a big part of life that's suddenly numbed. So GLP-1 also acts on the pancreas, and what it does there is it gets the pancreas ready and increases its efficiency to produce insulin or release insulin straight away once food or glucose enters the bloodstream. So that efficiency improves the glucose metabolism and helps to normalize people's blood sugar, so it has that really beneficial effect. But actually it only does that. It only encourages the pancreas to release insulin when food is present, not continuously, making it really safe for people because it removes that risk of hypoglycemia that you might see in other medications for diabetes. GLP-1 also acts directly on receptors in the heart and blood vessels to reduce inflammation, improve the functioning of the heart and blood flow, which has a direct positive impact on cardiovascular risk. So we actually see from studies that there are fewer incidences of stroke and heart attacks from the GLP-1 medications, and that's independent of the amount of weight lost. It's just an effect of the medication is improved cardiovascular health. So yeah, lots of benefits. But where does GIP come into it? So GIP is another hormone that we also produce naturally in the body, and sometimes that receptor agonist is paired with the GLP-1 receptor agonist in some of the medications. And the effect of that isn't necessarily to, on its own, it doesn't necessarily reduce hunger, but it's thought to help and improve how the body metabolizes some nutrients, and it's kind of got a reassuring effect on the brain, so it lets the brain know that nutrients are present. So earlier on when I said that GLP has quite an alarming effect on the brain, where the brain is like, what the hell's going on? The GIP, when paired with the GLP-1, kind of tells the brain, yes, we are super full, we shouldn't eat, but that's because we have nutrients present and everything is okay, so calm down. And that is one of the reasons why it's much better tolerated. So for example, Manjaro with both receptor agonists are often a little bit better tolerated than the Wegovy because of that reason. Another thing about GIP is that when I mentioned earlier about the dopamine reward response being numbed by GLP-1, the GIP actually maintains a little bit of a reward response, so that again, that's not completely gone in those dual receptor agonists, and that can make the medication better tolerated as well. So that combined effect of that is that doctors can increase the dose a little bit more quickly and to a much higher dose. Then you also got to think that brings with it a higher risk of malnutrition and things, so just something else to consider. So the impact of GLP-1 medications on weight loss is more than what we've seen in any other non-surgical intervention ever. The average weight loss with GLP-1 within less than 2 years is 15%, and with GLP-1 and GIP together, that average weight loss is more like 20%, so that is very significant. And the trials that gave us that data also gave us data to show that the medication is generally safe. But some people might wonder, what does generally safe mean? Are there any risks? Are there any more severe side effects? What is it that you have to look out for? Who is the most at risk? And those are all things that I want to go into and cover in the next video. But for now, this one is complete. Thank you.